That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste.
Where'd that come from?
Today we're here to talk about Sympathy for the Devil. Well, that's the very famous Rolling Stone song, of which Jean-Luc Godard directed a documentary about.
Wait, Sympathy for the Devil? Mm-hmm. Did you say the title?
No, I just said it.
Oh, okay.
I threw you off.
You did. The director.
It's the fourth film directed by Yuval Adler. It just premiered at the Fantasia International Film Festival. It will be released courtesy of RLJE Films on July 28th, 2023.
I think if you're a fan of the cage rage, you will enjoy this film.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. This is Nicolas Cage in full force, which makes sense considering he's a producer. He's sporting I think I've heard before that he likes Woody Woodpecker, and I'm reminded of that with this rooster-colored hair that he has, which I read he just showed up on set, and that was going to be it. I don't know how well he was directed in this.
Do we know the director's other films?
I've never seen his debut, Bethlehem, from 2013, which sounds quite good, that premiered out of Venice. I did see The Operative with Diane Kruger in 2019. That's very so-so. And we did review his last film, The Secrets We Keep, with Noomi Rapace, which kind of had I remember thinking that was heavily reminiscent of something like Death and the Maiden, but overall worth a watch. Especially this and his last two films, I feel, have very similar themes about secret identities and the past coming back to haunt you.
The story for this film: after being forced to drive a mysterious passenger at gunpoint, a man finds himself in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where it becomes clear that not everything is as it seems. I feel like that tells pretty much the full story. So, Joel Kinnaman plays a guy who we see he lives in Vegas, and he is on his way to the hospital because his wife is giving birth to their child.
Their second one. He just dropped off the other ones at relatives.
So he's in the parking garage of this hospital waiting for a spot when all of a sudden Nick Cage gets in the back of his car, like as if he were an Uber. Mm-hmm. Holds him at gunpoint and tells his ass to drive. So we spent a lot of time in this car driving. And at first, Joel Kinnaman is acting like he doesn't know what's going on. Nick Cage is saying that, I think you know why I'm doing this. And we find out that Joel Kinnaman had a different life with a different identity where he was basically a hitman. Mm-hmm. And Joel Kinnaman is responsible for killing Nick Cage's wife and child because his wife had witnessed
a bookie get murdered. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they're all sort of in some nefarious stuff. So everything culminates with what we think is Nick Cage killing Joel Kinnaman. But Joel Kinnaman gets the upper hand and kills Nick Cage at the end. Mm-hmm. So it's very simple.
It's very simple. Tables get turned. The wrong character that you initially think is allowed some catharsis, I guess, although I don't know how much you care about how he feels at the end.
I think the first hour was fun.
Yes. When you're still trying to piece it together, because it's weird. He jumps in the car at the hospital and we are told, Nick Cage, who's only credited as the passenger, is told, we're driving to Boulder City hospital where you're going to meet this guy connected to Boston somehow. And to me, my mind was going like, oh, this could be all kinds of sorts of different things. And it's not really. I think the first half hour is the most solid because then it's most reminiscent of a really good Ida Lupino film called The Hitchhiker from 1953, which I made you watch a year ago.
I'm just going to go through my notes. So when we meet Joel, he's in this car, a Chevy, and he has the low fuel light on. There's like a check engine light, low tire pressure light, and and his car's dirty. And you know me, I do not like a dirty car that's not in good repair. So already I was nervous. Also, whenever I see movies where like they're driving kind of a raggedy car, I assume the car's going to be trashed, which in this movie it is trashed.
Well, as soon as Nick Cage gets into the car and holds him at gunpoint, I kept saying, like, why wouldn't you just ram the side of the car he's on into something? Like, I'm not going to be sitting...
I mean, he does try that, I guess, at a point.
That is a very ill-advised try.
Sure.
Because Nicolas Cage can tell that he's thinking about jumping out of the car, so he unbuckles him for him and allows him to try to do so. And Joel Kinnaman does. And it looks well done, but that isn't the way to do that.
You mentioned Nick Cage's hair, like Woody Woodpecker hair, and somehow this is not the worst hair I've seen Nick Cage in, so I actually thought it kind of looked okay.
I thought he looked pretty decent. He has a matching wardrobe. And he's screaming at one point in that aforementioned scene about how, I think you broke my beautiful nose.
He's out of control, and it's funny.
It is funny. Lots of screaming. Mm-hmm.
His accent work is interesting because it sounds like he is doing half like a New Orleans accent and half Boston. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting.
He has a certain charm which makes you... I feel like it allows you not to care too much, maybe, about those things.
I think the first scene that I found really amusing is pretty early on in this car ride. Joel gets pulled over by the police, and Nick is in the passenger seat arguing with the police officer, talking about the flow of traffic and how they shouldn't be pulled over because they were speeding a little to keep up with traffic. It's pretty intense, and Nick Cage ends up shooting and killing the police officer.
And I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't want the job of law enforcement, but that cop was also acting, I don't know.
So when Joel jumps out of the car, Nick has to kind of jump from the back seat to the front seat to stop the car. And then he gets out saying, like, you almost broke my beautiful nose. And then he has a line talking about, I wanted to be 100% sex, but now I'm only 50% sex. And then he does some accent of like...
oh, he's doing Edward G. Robinson.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That was pretty good. Then, so we spent a lot of time in this car. Then we end up at a diner. And I thought the diner scene was really good.
Yep, and that ends in hellfire, and I thought it looked pretty good. I liked the actor playing the waitress.
I wrote that down. I thought, do we know her name?
I didn't write it down.
Oh, but I thought that side character was pretty good.
Yes, for something that could be extremely throwaway, interacting with these intense men that are clearly the focal point of this scene, I thought.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff going on in the diner scene, like Nick Cage seeing the menu and it says no substitutions, and you can tell right away that's going to be a problem. Then we see Nick gets a cup of coffee and he puts like 5 sweet and low in there, and you know how sweet and low is, like ugh. And then he like splashes it with whatever liquor he has in a flask.
It's like I've been drunk all day today.
Oh. Then at one point, he's screaming throughout the entire scene pretty much, but there's one point where he makes a really creepy face, and you said he looked like the lipstick demon from Insidious.
Yep, he sure does.
He did look like that. Then you mentioned he blows up the diner. So after that, that's when things kind of slow down for me.
Well, that's when all the reveals happen, and then it made me start thinking of other films that are set, almost entirely within a car that I like better, like Tom Hardy in the film Locke, which is damn near a decade old. But to me, that really is all in a car, and I thought worked a little bit better than this does.
At the very end, after Joel kills Nick, because his wife's, on this night, she's giving birth and she keeps calling, and at one point Nick picks up the phone and tells her husband is like preoccupied. So she finally leaves a message, or Joel finally listens to one of the messages she left, and she's like, I gave birth to a beautiful girl, and I don't know who that guy was, but I'm sure everything's fine. It's so stupid. And then I thought the way she's talking sounds like that podcast Scamanda, and the voice actor playing Amanda Riley.
That's
like so fake.
Like, girl, you sound real fake right now. But which is too bad, because I like how the stakes, it starts out really high. The stakes are very high with his wife's giving birth. There are potential complications, we're told, with the pregnancy that even the young son knows about. So, and then the constant ringing of the phone, I thought that worked really well. Nicolas Cage mocking her when she picks up and is giving birth. But to have like a really corny, stupid voicemail, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think the better story would have been keep everything like the first hour, but then we find out that Nick Cage got into the car of the wrong guy. I think that would have been the perfect ending to this story. But as it is, it was just kind of like, okay, well, because then they're both kind of like bad people, so...
Well, keeping the ambiguity of it, which of course, that also reminds me of Secrets We Keep, aka Death and the Maiden, about the ambiguity of, is this person responsible for the crimes that I think they are?
Yeah. What would you give this movie?
2.5.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.